Some of the key new features. So for the web client, one of the security things, or how it was developed initially, was through a product called Silverlight with Microsoft. That had always been temperamental from a perspective of network issues, would drop the connection. So the removal of the web Silverlight and going to an HTML browser has eliminated some of that issues with the Silverlight. All-in-one document viewers that we're going to show and see. And this really gives you a perspective of showing, a item or a purchase from a client, showing not only the order, the invoice, and then maybe the eventual payment on that, all in one screen, and being able to filter upon that screen. The ability to attach documents within the system, and then also scanning multiple pages right from an attached scanner to your workstation. It is an added feature within 2016 for the multiple pages, but it has been around since 2013 for single pages and being able to drag and drop documents into whether it be a client card or a purchasing transaction. Workflow enhancements we're going to look at. Export numbers from SmartList as formatted numbers, which is an enhancement over previous export functionality. And then Silverlight SmartList enhancements around creating smart lists from favorites and being able to export and import the designer views, and then tighter integration with Power BI on the home page. So some of the things that are missing going forward, and some of you, if you've already upgraded to 2013, you know that this is coming, but FRX is gone. You maybe have already been transitioned over to Management Reporter. Forecaster has been sunsetted. That was their automated budgeting tool within the system, and some of you may not be using it, just may be using, if you're using budgets at all, an Excel spreadsheet that you can import. And then Management Reporter. Is it being sunsetted? Well, official response from Microsoft is it's not being sunsetted, but they have actually said that they are not doing any more major enhancements to it. And this is basically down the same road that we saw Forecaster go, where they stopped developing for it and then later said that they're no longer going to support it. So they haven't officially released that they're not going to support it anymore, but it's taking the same road as Forecaster. But Microsoft has also identified a new partnership with Jet Reports and one of their products called Jet Express, which is an Excel add-in to do financial reporting off of GP, and that is due to be released, and a demo from Jet Reports on June 15th, and the capabilities around that product as an additional functionality outside of Management Reporter. So let's get started with some of the demos and looking at some of the information within the system. So what I have here is the thick client of GP, and I've already logged in, and as you can tell, some of the things are the same as what we see in 2013. The customized window is still up here. Now I've had not only of my workflows can be seen in here, so for time management entry, project time and expense, procurement if I so, but also I can deploy Power BI, which is Microsoft's business intelligence offering on their BI stack. But I can, deploy it, make a connection to my BI site that may be up in the cloud, and then also get that integrated back into GP. So when I log into the system, it'll be right here on my home page. Basic functionality still the same. Navigation, I can change my bars up above. The help menu is still the same. And if I go into any of my nodules down the left-hand side, I can see the panes. I have the ability to drag them now and change them wherever I want to. Clicking on the button again brings them all in. So there's a little more functionality of dragging and dropping how I want the setup to be within each module. And then so that is a little easier to do from that perspective. So there's multiple areas. So one of the new key features is the all-in-one viewer. So there's multiple areas to get to the all-in-one viewer. I'm just going to go off the vendor card, and I'm going to look at one of the vendors. And as soon as I highlight the vendor and select them, the all-in-one viewer up here in the ribbon becomes available. And from there, I can open up the ribbon that automatically filters it down to the vendor. And this basically shows me all the columns as it relates to this vendor, from purchase order, receipt of the purchase order, invoices, the payment on such invoice, or any returns on that. And I can easily then filter down by selecting one of the boxes, and it'll filter out any of the non-associated items that may be across any of the other columns. Doing the drop-down caret here shows additional detail on the item. And I can always click back and bring up the invoice or receipt or anything from basically clicking on one of the highlights. Ooh, out of range. Got some issues going on. And this is just a demo environment. So, clicking on one of them clearly brings up the receiving transaction query window. So this is a great new feature for when you have vendors or clients call in, they have a particular question about their invoice or payment. I can see the whole transaction, how it transpired within my system from the input, whether it be a purchase order, the receipt, and then the invoice and payment, and get the complete details, where before I used to have to search through multiple screens or see any relatively and try to determine how they were applied to each other. And like I said, that's not only in purchasing, but that is in the sales module, also in the inventory module for that all-in-one viewer. So one of the other functionalities that was added back in 2013 and has been enhanced going forward is the document attach functionality. And once it's enabled, you get this paper clip off the card, in this case the card record, but it can also be off payables transaction entry window. It can be on the sales order entry, so that there's a lot of functionality within the system. And I can, if I have an attached scanner, the scan button would then be enabled, but I can easily just say attach from here, click any record that may be out on my network or hard drive, and attach the record. From there, the record then is viewable for anybody that has security to this window to come in and preview the record at any point to see what it contains. And in this case, I have some other things available, but I can then, look at the record and see it at any time. I have the ability to delete it if that functionality isn't enabled, but my deletes truly don't get deleted. They just go to the delete bin so that I can see them at some other point. The enabling of that is rather simple. It's really just coming down to the document attached setup and saying where the default location will be before that they're saved before they're imported, and then whether you want the documents to flow through your workflows if you set workflows up within the system. So we have the ability to actually do workflows in the system, and that's as simple as coming in here, setting up a workflow and the steps required for that workflow, assigning managers and levels of that workflow. But some of the things that I can do workflows off of is my financial module, general ledger batch approval. So there could be an approval process. There could be several steps to that approval process based on the the value of the batch, or I can do it very simple. Obviously, I can do sales and receivables batch approval. Purchasing, I have the ability to approve down to the transaction level, batch level before it's posted. Purchase orders, requisitions if I'm using them, and also the entry of vendors into my system. So the vendor, while it will be entered, when you first enter it, until the vendor is approved, the transactions that could be entered against it won't be able to be posted or any checks cut until that is approved. And then I have payroll workflows that I can all set up, and project time and expense. And then from an administrative standpoint, this is where they put the Smart List Designer if you want to administer anybody that has the ability to create Smart Lists before it can be published in an approval record off of that. So one of the other key functionalities that came along with 2013 and has been enhanced since then is the Smart List Designer. And that's right in your Smart List area. And I can go to any Smart List and see that Smart List. I can also make modifications to it or create a new one. And that's just the new button up here. If I want to create, it brings the data from the most recent Smart List that I had open. So I can make modifications to my account summary if I wanted to, publish it into my financial series and name it something different. But the general feel is I get the ability where I didn't have before to create Smart Lists all on my own without buying a third-party product. I can create go-tos that will open existing windows off that record. And not only can I use the tables within the system that are there, if I have the ability to create views off my database and then use those custom views to create my Smart List. So if you have IT support, or there's a lot of great resources out on the web that already have SQL views that look at data and summarize that data. I can use those views, execute them on my SQL box, and then attach my Smart List to them so that I can easily create any type of report that I want. one of the other enhancements is also the ability off the is the export functionality. And so when I export, the numbers now come out as numbers rather than they were text fields initially. And then you always had to do formatting changes to get them to total up. So now they're clearly numbers, and I can total them. As you can see, my summary automatically changes from that view. So that's an added enhancement that should have been there initially, but will make life easier when you're exporting stuff. And then we already talked about the functionality or tighter integration with Power BI, and then that's enabling it down here in the reporting tool setup. So you would have to create a Power BI site, tell what the URL to that site is, and then get a client ID from Microsoft and attach that client ID here. And that basically enables, once that is all set up, enables the home page integration for any Power BI dashboards or reports that you've created for the system. And the other functionality, OData feed was added to the system. Integration with Management Reporter if you're using it, so you can start Management Reporter right from within the system. And this has been here quite some time, but refreshable Excel reports if you deploy them, and then reporting services. So some of the same reports that you can get from GP, like the trial balance is always a good one, can easily be deployed to SSRS. That way, if you're using SSRS, the reports can easily be exported to Excel without all the custom cleanup that you would have to do if you used the capabilities here in your trial balance to basically change the destination to a CSV file. So what are we missing, or what's gone with 2016? Well, FRX is no longer supported, so that basically gives you two options. Well, it gives you more than two options, but obviously you have Management Reporter, and as we discussed earlier, that is going to be basically development is done. It's never going to be moved to the cloud, and that's obviously with the web client that we're coming out in 2013. Microsoft is trying to move things more to a web client environment with GP and get that more functioning, especially with now Silverlight going away. So do you want to deploy a stagnant product? It's a question that you have to do. Compare. I mean, it does come with the system, but the Jet Express is going to come with the system out of the box, and it's just a matter of converting your FRX reports from management to either Management Reporter or Jet Express. There are other third-party products. Solver BI, Jet Reports has other enhanced products from their Essentials line, and then some other ones like Defacto that also have additional reporting capabilities. So then Forecaster is obviously sunsetted, and if you're not using it, you still have budgeting functionality within the system where you can import any type of budget from an Excel spreadsheet into the system, and then use Management Reporter and previously FRX or the Jet Express to do comparisons between your actuals and your budgeted numbers. or you can, there's other third-party products like Dynamics Budgets or Solvers BI360 that has budgeting capabilities within the system and gets you into a more automated functionality like Forecaster. So one of the other things that we talked about, and I'm just going to flip over here to the website, is the web client. So now the web client with GP 2016 has moved away from Silverlight. So now you have, you basically log into a website. You can sync that website or your login ID to your Active Directory login, which I have here. So there's no more need to remember multiple passwords, and just one sign-in gets them into the system. Clicking on any of the fields brings up the same windows that I would see before. So if I came back here, if I was on the financial window, I can see all the inquiry utilities the same way that I'm in the web client, and clicking on, say, the general entry of a transaction brings up the window to start entering my transaction, my GL transaction, and the functionality there. So I have the same functionality within the web client as I do the thick client. The only limitation right now with the client is everything's contained within this window. So if I open one window, I have to basically work on that window and close the window. I can't move it off the screen. I'm hoping that those things change, especially with most people using dual monitors nowadays. But that is the one limitation from that perspective with the web client right now. So I can go to the same other screens that I've seen previously within the thick client. So if I go to vendors cards, I can click on the lookup button, and this is all contained in one VM, so the response time isn't as fast as if it was in production, where some of these services would be separated. I can see the same all-in-one viewer for a particular vendor ID, and do any functionality within that perspective, and I can also it's taken a little while to populate. Just like I said from before, that because I'm on one VM, all the services are running on this same box. But the same capabilities are there, and the only limitation being the fact right now is that obviously I'm limiting myself to one monitor rather than dual monitors, that I could open multiple windows within GP before on when it's installed on my workstation, and then basically working on two screens at once. Hopefully that, in future releases of the web client, this limitation will be basically done away with. So that basically is an overview of what the web client and the thick client for GP 2016 will look like. I'm going to open it up now for any additional questions that you may have from our audience.
So just feel free to type any questions into the chat box, and then we'll address those. So we'll just give everyone a second to get their questions in. It looks like we have a question about an FRX and management reporter conversion. Will these reports migrate over to Jet Express?
Like any process, even through the migration tool with that Microsoft provides with FRX, there's some work involved after the tool is run. So you'll have to, on both accounts, even if you're going to Management Reporter, do some legwork to convert your reports. So it's just a question of, what you're more comfortable with, whether it be Management Reporter or Jet Express. So there would be some work. The additional capabilities that you would have from the Jet Express functionality is because it is a Excel add-in, you have all the formatting functionality of Excel within the system.
Thank you, Barry. It looks like we have another question here. Within GP 2016, the first release, are there any changes in the field service module?
There isn't any big enhancements within the field service module. Basically the system, they were mainly focused on the web client and moving away from the Silverlight functionality within the web client. And then obviously the other modules as it relates to the all-in-one viewer functionality. So there hasn't been any major changes to the field service area.
Thanks, Barry. Just any more questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box. It looks like we have one more. Barry, do you have any best practice recommendations for upgrading to GP 2016 from an older version like GP 10 or 2010?
From a best practices standpoint, it's always good to test out your upgrade path and any issues that may arise in a test environment before doing it in a live production environment. So we always recommend, setting up a separate SQL box, testing the upgrade path, make sure that upgrade doesn't arise with any data issues that may involve either us fixing or getting Microsoft involved, so that we know the fix during the production weekend upgrade.
Great, thanks, Barry. We have a question also from Elena Parkin. Is there an invoice workflow for routing invoices for approval and account coding to non-GP users? And is there an invoice workflow? Oh, nope, just said it's there twice.
So you have the ability within the system there's two things. You can have there's a limited user licensing for people that need to do approval for workflows within the system if you want them to. But also in the workflow setup, you have the ability to deploy what here on my screen, which is called web services. And with the web service setup and the email notification, a non-GP user can take action through their email and do approvals with it on that email without ever logging into GP. So they could essentially approve that without ever being able to or need to log into GP.
Great, thanks, Barry. And then it looks like we have another question from Jim. What is the actual release date for GP 2016 R2? Well, the first release of GP 2016 was just released in May, so it's usually on a 6-month cycle, so we can look for the R2 release sometime in the fall. Unfortunately, we don't get hard and fast dates from Microsoft very often, so we try to do our best to keep up with them as well. Just a note I wanted to point out to everyone as well, with all the new information coming out about Management Reporter and going away and Jet Express, KTL is going to be releasing a comparison sheet between the two and also incorporating some other BI tools, and that should be released today. Just another slide about all our marketing stuff coming up. We are going to be attending the GPUG Summit, so please come visit us at booth 1118 this October. We look forward to seeing you all there. It's going to be a great conference in Tampa this year. We have some more on-demand webinars coming up in September, empowering your customer's journey, and also October, upgrading, why and why not. So those are really good educational webinars that we have coming up, and the speakers and more information will be released on that soon. We have a live webinar coming up in November, BI Dashboards, Their Leading Impact, with Barry Crowell, our presenter today as well. So please, any feedback, please shoot us an email. We love to hear what we're doing right and what we can do better to make these webinars work better for you. And that's our webinar for today. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us at KTL, and we'd be more than happy to help you. Thank you for attending.